Tonight we welcome an old friend of mine and remarkable talent with a Sharpie. Tonight we welcome Danny Granger, former Elvis Tribute Artist and current official artist for the Doug Gilmour Authentic Collection. Danny, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Doug Gilmour Authentic Collection?
The Doug Gilmour Authentic Collection.
That must have been a moment for you.
Well, right? Because I'm a huge hockey fan. I'm a Montreal Canadiens guy, but whatever. We won't get into that. but yeah, I thought it was somewhat of someone spamming my Instagram, to be honest. When
Well, we're going to talk a lot more about it. Don't tell me everything yet.
Oh, I won't.
It's very exciting. Danny, thank you so much for being here with us this week. I'm very excited to talk to you more. You know we've known each other for a long time, but for the folks who don't know, I've known Danny. Actually, my wife, Shelly, knows you probably better, let's say.
Yes.
You guys have known each other since you were an ETA artist in Collingwood and all these other places that you would perform. My wife used to do stage management for these shows, so she knows you a little bit better than me. But then we got into the world of wrestling, and we hung out at wrestling. And, it's just really great to see your transmorphish. What's the word I'm looking for? Transformation. English is not my third language, so I just keep whatever. The transformation from when you started as an ETA, we were so young, until, today, where you are the official artist for Doug Gilmour Foundation. I mean, just that's like freaking blows my mind. But before we get into that, I just want to say hi to Aurora. And possibly we're going to have one of our other hosts show up at some point during the night. We'll see about that. But for now, hello, Aurora. How are you doing this week? Do you really want to say how you're doing this week?
I'm doing great. I had a couple of days off, and yesterday I went to a racing event called CSCS with my boyfriend Andrew, and I spent a good portion of the day outside, in the shade, in the AC of a car, but I spent an hour and a half in direct sunlight, and I got terribly burnt. So I'm moving a little bit slower today. It's been a long time since I've gotten burnt this bad. I think COVID is part of the reason for that. So it's just I have to be very careful.
COVID gave you sunburn?
No, it's just because we haven't been out and doing things as much, and gathering for different events and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. I guess I misjudged how well I can handle the sun.
Yeah, you really got to lather up like every hour, every 2 hours or so.
Yeah, my mom used to say if you use SPF 60, you do it every 60 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know, it doesn't make sense, but at least it puts sunscreen on me.
Actually, it kind of works. If you use 27, then you do it every 27 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
I need to buy the sunscreen 360. All right. Anyway, I hope you feel better soon. Hope you you don't get too much pain. You can sleep and stuff, because sunburns, I know they are the worst.
Yeah, at least it's more on one side than it is on the other. So I can sleep on one side a little bit better than the other. But I'm super excited to get into the conversation today.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk to Danny. Danny, again, thanks so much for being here this week. I just asked you not long ago, and you said yes wholeheartedly, and I really appreciate it. So there's so much to talk about, and I think what I like to do at the beginning is just talk about how our show is meant to help people. We've had so many different guests from all different backgrounds and so on and so forth, and your background is super interesting to me because you're so diverse, and what you've done. I mean, Sharpie isn't when I first knew that you were drawing with Sharpies, I had no clue what that was. I didn't have any idea. I knew you from singing. I knew you from performing. So I was like, that is such a different shift for you, or for anybody really. So let's talk about that. How did that start? You originally were an ETA, which I said you were very young. How young were you when you started?
Started singing at 14. So I came across a bunch of VHS tapes at my dad's place, and one of them was Jailhouse Rock, and I put it in, and I was hooked. I was just hooked, right? Like Elvis killed a guy with his bare hands the first 20 minutes of that movie, right? And I was just in a bar fight,
things nobody thinks about. Things nobody thinks about at all.
And why would I? Like I said, I was 14, so it was the late 90s, early 2000s. So there wasn't a lot of kids rocking black hair and sideburns, right? But yeah, I was hooked on Elvis. My mom met a guy named Bob Payne at the Sarnia car show. He had a big 68 Eldorado. It's purple with pink flames on the front. It looks so cool, right? And And my mom's like, hey, my son sings to me around the house. He's pretty good at it. One thing led to another. And in 99, I entered my first Elvis festival in Brantford, Ontario, and changed my life. Just completely changed my life.
For the better.
Well, I don't know. Right? I think so, because I've had a really good life. But
Perfect.
if that situation didn't happen, I had no idea like what road I would have walked down, all because of that random VHS tape. So yeah, that just changed me forever.
It's amazing how one little
So
spark
cool.
can light this fire that just lasts forever. Even to the point where right now, as I'm talking to you, you are in Collingwood.
I'm in Collingwood, like at the end of July, and I'm in Collingwood.
And the reference to that would be the Collingwood Elvis Festival, which is something you did for years. And even though it's not on anymore, you still migrate back there. It's in your DNA. We were just talking about this before.
I think so. It's a magnet attached to my hip.
All right. Do you still sing?
No, I have 2 daughters, right? I sing to them a lot. Sing around the house. I do. Well, before COVID, once a year, I do a show for community living back home. So people with special needs. I've been doing that show since I was 15. They've hired me every year. Even though I don't sing and I quit singing, I still, every year I go back and I do that because it's just so nice. Like when you can look out and you see people who actually just love it. And like, I'm not singing well. I'm not dancing well. I'm just having fun. We're all just having fun. And they're just looking at you like you're just like brighten up their night. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really, really cool feeling.
You say you're not singing well. I remember you singing quite well, if I may say so. But do you have any memories from your time when you were actually performing that you thought, this is what I want to do forever? Did you feel that was your goal in life, that you wanted to do that? Or was that just something that you knew you wanted to do and have a good time doing for the time being?
Yeah, I was just having fun, right? Like, because I was so young that, I had a bunch of buddies who were doing it, and all my buddies were older because they were Elvis guys, right? So I could see that none of them were actually doing it for a living, if you know what I mean. So like I wanted to entertain and I wanted to be around people. I didn't know if it was going to be singing or, acting or anything like that. It turned out to be art later on. But yeah, I always knew I wanted to entertain though, but not necessarily sing.
Now, it turned out to be art later on. Does that mean that you weren't really doing anything with the drawing until that was all over? Or
I spent my childhood drawing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I spent my childhood drawing hockey cards and hockey logos. Really, it's like I had a couple posters on my wall of goalie masks, and I would draw them constantly and just try to replicate the mask and try to do this and try to do that. And there's a cool story about that. Maybe we could talk about later on about goalie masks. But yeah, and that's what I did. I always loved hockey and Elvis. Those are my two things. But we couldn't afford to play hockey. My mom could afford black hair dye once every 6 months, and that's what we chose. Really, basically, that's how the Elvis thing happened because it wasn't financially, didn't cost us a lot to do.
It's so sad that financial reasons are the reasons why so many people don't follow their initial career paths. I think everybody can probably say at some point, except for super rich people, that they are limited in life in options based on their income and what they have to go through. But you always make the best of it, right?
Yeah.
Just do what you got to do. Still have fun. Your attitude is spectacular. I mean, we talked about before we signed in, I was like, you're going to be doing this from outside? Is bugs? He said, no, there's no bugs. It's nice. It's breezy. It's beautiful. It's like everything's great. I love that. As it should be.
Yeah, man.
Because right now I'd be outside just like swatting at the bugs. Because there's got to be something out there. Anyway.
It's fine out here.
Awesome. So the transition, I was making notes earlier about what we were going to talk about. And I'm kind of broke down, ETA and then wrestling and then drawing. And I'm trying to put in my mind that correlation in what's that one common passion that you have that draws those all together. And first thing you say about Elvis is that he killed somebody. And then, of course, hockey, which is a big important thing to you, which is, I believe your brother is an enforcer in the hockey world. Yeah. So, there's that, right? And then there's wrestling. So it perfectly makes sense to me now. You just love people beating each other up. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Wow. I love people beating each other up, but not for real.
I know that's
You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. I don't want to see people actually get hurt. And like even
such a
like
good
hockey enforcers, you can get hurt. Hockey fighting, you can get hurt, but you're on ice, right? So your leverage and the force of your punch isn't as hard as if you were like boxing, right? Or an MMA. Plus, you have your helmets and your gloves a lot of the time, so it's not really that big a deal. And we all
everyone's
know
trained equally to defend against it. And,
exactly. There's a code, right?
Yep.
Like you're not going to sucker a guy or a gal or anybody else. And wrestling, well, we won't. We all know about that, right? So
we're gonna get
and
into that, though.
yeah,
We're gonna get
yeah.
into that.
So no, I just because like I don't like mixed martial arts. I don't like UFC. I like old school boxing, but I don't like new boxing. I don't like that kind of violence. I'm not really a fan of.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because just the other day I was at work and I was explaining wrestling to some friends and they're like, "Oh, you must like UFC." I'm like, "No, not at all. I don't like seeing people really get hurt or trying to punch themselves." I get this weird vibe of when I start seeing real violence. It's like, nope, not for me.
Yeah, 100%.
I like that you say that too, and that's why I like wrestling. You can kind of you know they're trying to take care of each other, right?
Yeah.
You know that the violence is a show. It's all just they're trying to have everybody have a good time, right? And the more outrageous, the better. And sometimes there's some crazy stuff, but at least they accept the risks going into it. How did you get wrapped up in that world? Because I know you know a lot of the guys in the wrestling world.
The wrestling world's a weird one, right? As you know, I was always a big fan of professional wrestling since I was a kid, right? So it was always a passion of mine. And then when I got to high school, I met up with a couple guys that you know as well. So I went to high school with Joe Dog Hallam and Jeff Black.
Oh.
So we went to high school together, us three. And of course, when you go to high school, I grew up in Goderich. So, we had 400 kids at the high school. And then, so if you see the other kid wearing a wrestling t-shirt, well, hello, right? You're going to become instant buddies. And I became instant buddies with those guys. And Jeff, ever since we were in grade 9, so he was in grade 10, he's like, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. He knew from the get-go, this is what I'm going to do. So I said to him foolishly all the time, well, I'll practice with you, right? You could throw me around. We could do whatever. And then we started doing like some backyard wrestling stuff. And where we grew up, there was a lot of barns, right? So we did a lot of fighting in barns and did that kind of stuff. We had, it's called VCW. And we just fooled around with that, cut off my earlobe, stupid kid stuff in the late 90s. Yeah. Stop sign to the head. And then it slipped. But stuff like that. Sorry guys, my daughter's trying to open up a freezy with a fork.
Oh, if you gotta do that, that's okay.
Yeah, she wants to come and say hello if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but so that's how I got interested. There he is.
Yeah, I was just gonna share that. I pulled it up. It came up a bit too quick. I'll show it again in a second.
All right, so why don't you go get some scissors? You want to say hi to everyone?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. So this is Lily. This is my oldest daughter. She just turned 7 on the 20th. So we just had her birthday.
Happy birthday.
So they said happy birthday. Okay, say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
See ya.
Awesome. So yeah, I got involved with those guys in high school. And then, of course, you go off to college and stuff like that, and things change a little bit. Jeff Black.
So there's Jeff Black right there for anybody who's wondering what kind of character is hitting you on the head with a stop sign.
So we even, he was student council, spirit rep or president or one of those two. We even did, wrestling at the assemblies. I remember I made this t-shirt and I got fabric paint. I had a chest like The Rock and all this kind of stuff on it. And I remember we jumped off of ladders, onto boxes. And I remember one of the things was he gave me a pedigree onto a box, right? But the box didn't soften at my neck. So it I couldn't breathe. So he runs up the ladder and he says, push the ladder. So I pushed it, but I pushed it a little hard because I think I was a little pissed off at him. and then he had this pile of boxes and he just missed them. And he just fell right on the school floor in front of 400 kids in our high school, right? So he looks at me and I was like, okay, I'm going to pin you. We know nothing about wrestling. We shouldn't have been doing this. For all my wrestling friends, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry, right? We shouldn't have been doing it, right? So I was like, okay, dude, I don't know what to do. I thought he broke his back. I honestly thought he broke his back. And of course, he's not going to play it up, kayfabe, right? Mm-hmm. So then he goes, no, rock bottom me. I was like, oh, dude, do it. So I pick him up, I give him a rock bottom, I pinned him. We left. The principals chewed us out so bad.
Oh my goodness.
And then Jeff just walked in. He goes, "What's wrong?" They're like, "Oh, how are you walking? Okay." He's like, "It's wrestling." Right? So the principal's like, oh, never mind, guys, never mind. They're like, "Yeah, that was all planned. The way it went down was all planned." We left that day, went like right to his mom's house, put ice on his back because he was messed up.
That's the thing. As a wrestler, you put up with so much pain, and you have to play it off. Like you said, kayfabe. You can't let the audience know that there was an injury. You play through it. You don't let the world know how bad you're hurt.
Yeah,
it's like that with a lot of entertainment.
So that's how I got involved with those guys, and then of course, you get in your 20s, and you start talking to girls, and you kind of disappear about wrestling for a little bit, right? And then when I got a little bit older, and got married and stuff, I got back into it, and then I went to Super Kick Wrestling in Toronto, which is my favorite organization, which I've taken you and your lovely wife to.
Yes,
we had a good time at that, and I just got in with those guys too, and my art opens up a lot of doors when it comes to any organization. So, and it's all about respect, right? So you can easily become friends with a lot of those guys or a lot of people in that kind of business with just respect.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about.
That's so important, especially in the wrestling world, as we know, especially the wrestling. I mean, respect goes a long way in any business, of course, but in wrestling, the whole foundation. It's like that's I think one of the biggest things when COVID first hit is everybody shakes everybody's hand, and the first wrestling event I went to, nobody was shaking hands. You could tell people still wanted to because that's part of the respect. You walk around, you introduce yourself to everybody, and it's a pretty big deal. All right, well, I'm so happy that we did that super kick too. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I told you you'd like it.
I do, and I want to go back. We haven't done that yet.
I'm curious, like, because you're saying you're into the wrestling world now. Is it like I'm just trying to figure out maybe like how you're involved with the wrestling world? Do you go to see lots of shows or?
Like I go to every Super Kick show. So Super Kick's in Toronto. It's once a month. I became friends with those guys, but I've done 2 charity art shows called Art and Wrestling. So I've done them with Super Kicks. So I get all my artwork and I hang it up at Super Kick Studios, and then the guys put on wrestling matches at the end. So after we did the first one for Sick Kids, the owner of Super Kick, Chris Chambers, him and I became just extremely close when you go through something like that for such a amazing cause, and we're both fathers, and it meant a lot to both of us. And then I'm on a permanent guest list at Super Kick, and my ticket's just giving Chris's wife a hug every time I go in. So that's how I got in with those guys. And then it's like Brian said, the wrestling world's a small world, right? And once you get, well, they call it green light from the wrestlers, but it's the same thing when it comes to people who work behind the scenes, right? Like Shelly and Brian. And I'd say even what I do is I work behind the scenes because I go to student shows and I'll be yelling at the bad guys, cheering for the good guys, right? I'm always yelling at the ref, telling him how to do his job. And you need those people in the crowd, right? That's all part of it, right?
Oh yeah,
so
wrestlers feed off of that as much as they feed off of their opponents.
They need it, and they need it. And especially when the refs see it to me, and especially at student shows, because they know I'm friends with all these guys, they're like, "Oh, he's probably right." You know what I mean? Like, yeah, why am I not counting as that guy's punching the other guy in the corner? You know what I mean? And stuff like that. But that's really how I got involved in my artwork. My artwork's reached a lot of big time wrestlers that have really been good to me. Treated me like not just a fan or a mark, but actually a friend. And that's a really cool feeling.
That's awesome. You've also mentioned a couple times, like throughout this conversation, that a lot of the events you're involved in are involved in some sort of charity, and like giving back to the community in some way with the sick kids before and all of that. And I think that's really awesome. How do you get involved with these kind of charities, and what inspires you to kind of do that?
I'm really blessed. Like I'm extremely blessed that I can do it. You know what I mean? Like I was raised by a mom who she raised 2 of us and my stepsister, on one income a lot of the time, and You know, we didn't have much, right? But we, you know, had, of course, everything we needed at certain times in our lives. And then, but my mom was always the same way. Like, she'd be working a full-time job, and at night she would just go and like pack up boxes at the soup kitchen, like, and stuff like that. So I always saw it as a kid that, you know, if you have something you can do that's not really financially costing you anything, because I don't have a lot of that, right? But I was blessed to have a talent where people want to buy my art, and when they do, if I can use that to make money for things I believe in, then I'm all about it. Plus, you know, it's great exposure for doing good things, right? And you can't buy that exposure, and that's a lot of things that people don't get. Like, you know, you like, you're a musician and stuff, and you say, oh, I don't want to be paid in exposure bucks, and that's true. Like, I'm not going to do a guy that owns a bar downtown a painting for free, right? But if a hospital gets a hold of me and they say, we want to do something that we're going to put up, you know, one of the rooms, I'm not going to charge them for it, right? So, like, it's one of those situations. So, like, I always just, if I can, I try to do a lot of charity stuff. You know, it bugs my wife sometimes, but it's a good
No,
thing.
I respect that. And I can see how, if you were to do something for a charity event, I just, again, most of the work I've seen you do is through the charity stuff that you do, which in my brain shows the value of your work, which in a consumer's brain raises the value of your work.
Well, you can't put a price on art. That's the thing, right? Like, something could be worth $1 million to some person, and I wouldn't even buy it for $5 million, right? So with art, you got to build your brand, right? And and stuff like that helps, and it's something I believe in. So, you know, it's always going to come through.
Well, I love your art. You know, I've
Thanks,
got
buddy.
one of your pieces hanging full time in my home. I made the mistake once of saying it was only hanging in winter and Christmas time, and Shelly immediately corrected me. It's up year round. It's a Santa Claus, and because he knows how much my wife loves Christmas. So that was really nice drawing you did for us. So how did you end up just using Sharpies? Because that's pretty much what you do, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a really cool story how that started. I took a plumbing apprenticeship back home in Goddard. So this was 8 years ago. And so my wife now, she's my girlfriend at the time, was living in Toronto. So one day I woke up and I wasn't really liking the plumbing apprenticeship. It was for a buddy, but I was like, you know what? This is going to help my future. Something I need to do. So
sorry, Dan,
I went
just
in.
1 sec. Yeah. If you don't mind, your mic is rubbing on your shirt quite a bit. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
No worries. I just want to make sure everybody can hear you well. Thanks.
Yeah. So I did this plumbing apprenticeship, and it was like the second week, and I just wasn't feeling it, but I was feeling good because I was celebrating my 1 year sobriety. Ooh. So I had 1 year without a drink. I woke up, I had that pep in my step, right? I stopped, I got myself a coffee, I got to work, I got to the shop, and they looked at me and said, oh, we partied last night. We had a rough night. So just, you know, stick around the shop for a couple hours and clean it up and then head home. I thought, okay, whatever, right? It's a good day for me. I'll spend the day to myself. But I had to clean up empty beer bottles and puke and beer that was spilt on the ground. And this is my 1 year sobriety, right? Like, I felt so defeated, like so defeated. So I got home, I was just in tears. I called my girlfriend. I go, what do I do? Well, like, what can I do? She wasn't here. You know, I was like, what can I do? And she's like, well, you used to draw a lot when you were a kid. So why don't you go get a sketchbook? I was like, well, that makes sense. I'm near Dollarama. I'll just go grab something. So I'm looking in my pocket, and I have $2. That's it, $2 to my name. I go get a sketchbook. I get home, and I realize I have nothing to draw with. So I look down at my work bag, and there was a Sharpie. So I picked it up. I started just goofing around, and didn't really do anything, right? It was just me just goofing around with the Sharpie. And then, of course, the first thing I drew was Elvis. And then I was like, oh, you know what? That doesn't look too bad, right? And then one thing led to another, and I kept doing it. And so I was doing that, not liking the plumbing apprenticeship. It was like a week into it. My wife gives me a call and says, we're pregnant, and we're going to have our first child. So you need to decide what you're going to do, bud, right? Wow. Like, we need to figure this out. So I was still in Goddard at the time, and I went into the plumbing shop that day, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to tell them I can't do this. I don't want to. The people I was working with, it was a really, really toxic environment. It was not the people who owned the business, but just the trades, right? And the trades back in a small town are a lot worse than they are in a lot of places. And there was a lot of like derogatory comments that were always made, not towards me, but like if I heard the FAG word one more time, I was just gonna lose it, right? Just stupid, childish, dumb stuff. And so I wasn't feeling good about it and stuff. So I go and I said, "Hey, buddy, I need to talk to you." I sit down in his office. He goes, "Oh, good. I need to talk to you too." He's like, "What's up?" And he's looking at me and like he's weird. He's like a little off. And I'm like, "This is weird." And then all of a sudden, I see a tear go down his face. I'm like, "What's up, bud?" He goes, "I'm gonna have to let you go." Before I said a word to him, he goes, "I'm gonna have to let you go." I go, "Oh, why is that?" He goes, "Well, we don't think it's working out. We thought we want to hire someone with a little bit more experience, something like that, blah, 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 blah." And I looked right at him and said, "Hey," he goes, "What?" I go, "My girlfriend's pregnant."
Oh.
And he just looked at me with these big wide eyes. And I go, Thank you. Because you made this decision really easy for me now." So I gave him a big hug because I went to high school with this guy. He's actually one of the guys that like kind of, got me into Elvis too. He's a big Elvis fan. So I gave him a big hug. He gave me a big hug. We parted ways, and I said, "I have 2 months of rent still paid up, but I need to eat. What am I going to do?" I was like, "I'm just going to draw." So I started drawing. I put up some pictures on my Instagram, and people were digging it. And a buddy of mine said, "Hey, can you draw my girlfriend and I?" I was like, "I'll try, right? I'll try." And he's like, "Sure." So I did it, and he's like, "I love it." He came over and he handed me a $20 bill and a $10 bill. And I still have it at home. And that was 8 years ago, the same 20 and 10. And he goes, "Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it." And I looked at it and I went, "I think this is it.
There you go.
I think this is it."
Awesome.
Yeah. And so it always tied together then with my sobriety because it was the thing that I felt that I really needed to kick me, like to just bring me back up, right? My self-esteem was really low. And being an entertainer for so many years, people tend to really like you when you're on stage. And when you come off stage, they tend to really like you. But then when you don't have that anymore, you don't have that feeling of adulation or people, appreciating what you do. Right. And I felt like I wasn't appreciated for anything. So when that guy looked at me and handed me that $30, I'm like, it wasn't a lot of money to him. It was a lot of money to me at the time. Right. But it was more it just started everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then a month after that, I did a drawing of the Iron Sheik, and then he retweeted it, which is really awesome. And I won't say his exact words in case it's a family-friendly show.
No,
but
you can say it.
Yeah, he's like, the Danny Granger draw the Sheiky baby better than a fucking jabroni Mona Lisa. That's what he put on his Instagram. And then like from there on, I went, okay, this is what I'm going to do now.
Perfect.
This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick to this style. I'm not going to lie. I borrowed the style from a mutual friend of ours, Brian, Mr. Marcus Wells, because I have 2 of Marcus's paintings in my house. So Marcus did the same kind of style with a high black contrast and everything. And I always loved it. Well, that's why I bought 2 of his pieces. And yeah, he started doing it. Then I just kind of saw the style and I really dug it. And one thing led to another. And yeah, here we are.
Well, I'm sharing some of your work here. I've gone to your website, Danny Granger Art, and I'm just going to scroll down here. Here we are.
There's probably a bunch of old stuff on there. That top one there. Mm-hmm. So that is the Bren Machine Gun Girl. There's a bar in Liberty Village in Toronto called Locus, and it was where they made the Bren machine gun. They made artillery and ammo, and that picture was taken in that building. They asked me if I could do this painting for them. And I said, sure, no problem. They're like, I have the canvas. Is that cool? I'm like, sure, no problem. I showed up to the restaurant. And the canvas was 5 feet by 10 feet.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And the biggest I've ever did at that point was like 16 by 20 inches.
Wow.
And they're like, can you do this? I'm not going to say no. Right? Yeah. So that painting right there. So that's black acrylic with some gray and some gold. And that's 10 feet by 5 feet. So that's a painting.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just your work is just very contrasty and very dramatic. And to think that you're doing all this with a Sharpie.
Yeah, like a lot of the stuff Sharpie, a lot of the stuff. Like when I do big pieces, I like to do acrylic. I think like the Sharpie is a cool thing when it comes to like it's a gimmick. right? It's a gimmick, and
What makes you
it,
unique?
but it's my gimmick. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, a lot of people look at it and they think Banksy, or they think, you know, like spray paint stuff. But I want to just try to keep it in that style, even if it's not with paint. I want to just do that. I want people to look at something and go, "Hey, did Danny do that?" Right? So
That's awesome.
that's
It's
the
kind of how
goal.
I feel about my photography too, though.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, you
Yeah.
want it to be a little bit different. You don't want to be same as everybody else, and you know, cookie cutter kind of thing. So you try and find what makes you unique, and it's awesome that you found this. I think I found the Elvis work that you did. I'm going to share this here. And of course, why not do Elvis? I mean, he's such a big influence in your world, right?
Oh well, yeah, just in my life in general, and
Yeah.
it's such, you know, it's such a popular image too.
Yeah.
So
I think everybody should search your work and just some of the stuff that you've done for the art and hockey. I want to talk about that as well because that's another big charity that you've worked with.
yeah,
It's just, I love that you're able to use what you love to do to not just help yourself, of course, but to help other people as well with your charity work. I just want to touch back first on your experience as an apprentice. I did the same kind of thing, believe it or not. I was an apprentice electrician, and my father wanted me to get work, and he got me a job. I hated it. He literally walked me into an electrician's office and said, "Hire my son. He wants to do this." I didn't. So I was an apprentice electrician for a while until I saw my needle nose pliers explode in my foreman's hand. And then I was like, okay, this is not the job for me.
yeah,
And
it's a scary profession.
they end up making me go in, you know, sorting nuts and bolts in their basement and carrying concrete. And it's like you say, when you're in a environment that's just not good for you, it's toxic, as you said. It's definitely not a place you should stay. So I'm glad you found your solace in art. I'm glad that you were able to, you know, do that. Is that what you do day in and day out? What's your full time?
It has been. Well, it's been weird, right? The world's been weird,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, I've managed a home hardware in Liberty Village in Toronto for 6 years, and then COVID hit, and we had our youngest daughter. It was October, then the COVID thing started in March. So, you know, my wife and I just came to the decision. I was like, you know what? Let's just focus on my art full time because I can do it from home. You know, I could be a stay-at-home dad, live the dream, right? And just do my art. And we were humming and hawing about it because, you know, financially, right? Hello, right? There's no steady paycheck when it
It's
comes to
inconsistent. Yeah.
entertainment.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were humming and hawing, and then all of a sudden I get a message from 93 Marketing, which is Doug Gilmour's marketing company.
All right. Tell us
And
about this. Tell us
yeah,
about your connection with Dougie Gilmour.
well, this is where it all started. Like, I got this, his wife's been following my art for a while. Her name's Sonia. So she's been following my art for a while because, you know, I tagged her. Any drawing I've done of Doug Gilmour, of course, I'm going to tag anybody who's related to him, just back in the day so he'd see it, right? Or hopefully see it, right?
Mhm.
So I tagged his wife in something once. She commented a lovely comment on it and started following me. So 6-7 months go by, and I get a message from 93 Marketing, a guy named Jeff. And he goes, "Hey, Danny, this is Jeff. I work for Doug Gilmour, Shane Corson, Darcy Tucker, all these hockey players. And Doug's looking for a new logo for a clothing line he's putting out. And he was wondering if that'd be something you'd be interested in doing." So I put the phone down, I looked at my wife, and I was like, this can't be real. Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, right? I'm like, okay, it's real, and they're gonna say, hey, do a drawing for us. We'll give you $50 and we'll exploit the heck out of you. Right? It's basically what, you know, so my wife's like, say yes. No matter what, just say yes. We'll see where it goes. Right? What are you out? You're out a couple Sharpies and a couple hours, you know, 3-4 hours of your day. So just say yes. So like, yeah, I'm on board. I'm down. What do you want to do? So they're like, we want to do a drawing of Doug from behind with his jersey tucked up because he always had his jersey tucked into one side. And I said, okay, if that's what you want to do, let's do it. So I still thought it was iffy. So I did it, and I spent a lot of time on it, right? I nitpicked it and went over it like crazy. And then I get a message from Doug's wife after I sent it to them saying they love it. They're like, we love it. We're gonna do something with it. They paid me. They offer me royalties on whenever they use it. And they're like, you know what? Let's do it. So I'm like,
Wow.
okay, right? So I'm like, cool, great. And all of a sudden, 4 months goes by, nothing. 6 months go by, nothing. So I'm like, okay, I got played. Right? I got played. It is what it is. I got paid for the drawing. We're fine. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. Whatever. If they don't use it, they probably found someone else. So no problem. And then 9 months go by, and I get a message, and all of a sudden, boom, Doug Gilmour Authentic Collection, and the logo is my drawing, and it's right there. And they're like, all right, Dan, we're going to do shirts, we're going to do hoodies, we're going to do hats, we do all this stuff, and your logo is going to be on everything, but we also want to do a shirt with just your drawing on it. Are you okay with that? I was like, yeah, like I'd like to okay it before you put it in production, if that's okay, because I've never done anything like this. I didn't know how to handle it.
So exciting, though. So exciting, though.
So exciting, right? So I was hoping, I was like, oh, I hope they don't like do my drawing and like a big blue maple leaf behind it with a big 93 and make it look all tacky. And you know what I mean? Just weird. And they sent me the proof, and it was just a gray shirt with my drawing on the front, my signature. That's it. And I was just like, okay, yeah, I approve that. I'm good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was just, and that's what gave me the confidence. Like, so that happened. I registered my business. Like I, made Danny Granger Art an official business, and, started paying taxes on it, doing all that kind of stuff. And it just gave me that boost to be like, maybe I can do it. Like maybe my art can be something that I can do full time for a career. And it was that little boost by the Gilmours that really helped, and it opened up. Well, of course, his name in Toronto or Canada in general is just massive.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, right? That's my era. That's when I was watching the Leafs. That's when I was watching baseball and hockey and all the things Toronto was doing amazing at. And 90, 91, 92, 93.
Yeah.
This picture I'm sharing here, is this the logo you're talking about?
No. So if you go to the shops. It should be little ones.
Home.
You go down to right. So you see those shirts and everything there. I think Doug Gilmour Killer Gear, I think it's what it's called. So if you see there we go. Keep going. So my logo. So there's the shirt right there. So that's my drawing on the shirts. So cool. and all the rest have the logo on it, which is just his head. But yeah, so that's my drawing right there on the shirts.
So every time one of these shirts sells, you get a royalty for it.
I get a royalty every time anything sells with that drawing on it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm gonna buy one.
He just came out with a new hat last week, and it sold out in 2 hours. Yeah, well, and it's got my logo right on the side. Yeah, like let's be completely honest, it's not a lot of money, right? But like that's not the point. Even if it was a couple cents, it was still like there's money coming in from something I've already done, right? That I could just let come in. Right. And as an artist, you don't get that luxury too often.
It's true.
So, and that's what I want to do. Like, I would love to now strike a deal with all these guys that I've met and became friends with, and hopefully do that so I can have a couple, sticks in the fire that we can be getting a check every month from a Doug Gilmour or a Mike Palmatier or Shane Corson or something like that. Right. So, and I hope, it's been going well. The sales were going well. Everything's going well. So, yeah, hopefully it helps me open up more doors.
Well, good luck with that. I know it's going to happen for you. I'm super stoked for you, man. With singing and with drawing, they're very creative endeavors that you do. Of course, the passion for wrestling. Is there anything else that you've wanted to try? Is there anything else that you thought this would be a really cool, creative thing that I'd like to give a shot?
Glass blowing? There's a glass blowing place near my house, and I walk by it all the time. Right. And I'm just like, I don't know why, but I just think that would be cool. Like pottery, not so much. You know what I mean? Like I've wanted to do like sculpting because now, I draw faces a lot. So sculpting might be a really cool challenge for me. But yeah, glass blowing is something I think I'm going to do it next year. I'm going to sign up for a course and I'm going to just try it.
Have you got Netflix?
Yeah.
Have you watched Blown Away?
Yeah.
Okay, so that sparked me thinking I should try that too. Until
the pieces
break. I mean, you spend hours on this amazing piece of glass blowing, and all of a sudden it just falls and smashes into a million pieces.
Yeah,
I
no,
couldn't handle that heartbreak.
yeah, no, I'll be pissed. But just think about the good feeling it is if you did it, though. Do you know what I mean? And then patience, because that's the thing. I don't have patience, and I think it's one of those skills where you have to have patience. Like you have to take your time to do it. You have to do it a certain way. You can't half-ass it. Like you have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that I want to try to get into that.
But I might disagree with that, because you've spent hours on paintings and drawings and stuff like that. So there's patience for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. There's some, but it's I can't write like when I look like a doctor when I write, right? Just without the money. And but I could draw faces. So like for me it's more, it slows me down. Like I've had ADHD since I was a kid. So like the drawing helps slow me down, but I can, when I draw, I'm in a different world though, right? Like when it comes to, like you said, having the patience to actually, this sounds cocky. Like I'm past that. Like when it comes to worrying about drawing certain things now, you know what I mean? Like I'm pretty confident if I get myself a really good image that it's going to turn out well. Right. So
I
like
can't even say that with photography, just so you know.
Yeah, well, like, and I don't mean in a cocky way. Like there's just, if I get to choose the image, that makes it a lot easier.
Well, you know what you're good at. You know your skills. Yeah. I mean, you've been doing
and I
it
have
long
my
enough.
And I have my style. Right. And that's the thing, right? Like when you can find a style, it doesn't have to be perfect. Right? Like it's like any art. Mm-hmm. It's like abstract art and stuff. There's a lot of art I don't get, and I'm just not a fan of. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it is what it is. I went to an art market 2 weeks ago. My cousin had a booth there. And I've always wanted to do that kind of stuff, but it's just not my thing. And then I saw a guy doing portraits. And they didn't look like the picture. I'm not saying they were bad, because no art's bad and no art's really good. Right? It all depends how everybody wants to look at it and how you look at it. Mm-hmm. And this guy said he was doing a pointillism portrait that took him 60 hours. And that blew my mind, because I know there's no way that took him 60 hours. Right? I've done a lot of portraits in my day, and I know there's no way that took him 60 hours. But then I thought to myself, if that took him 60 hours, how much does he have to charge for that drawing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like you would have to charge a ridiculous amount of money for that drawing. So that's why, like I said, I like to try to keep to the style that I have now, because I know how long it can take me to do.
That would be a $7,500 paint drawing if it was my drawing.
Well, it would have to be time-wise.
Yep. $150,
right?
$125 an hour minimum.
And you can't. I mean, you can't do that. like I have a hard time selling drawings sometimes for $90, right? So that's just how it is.
I have a question, because this has kind of been sitting in the back of my head since I saw some of your drawings up on the screen. I was immediately reminded of the style of a tattoo artist from France that does like these like retro contrasty kind of tattoos and stuff like that. I know a lot of artists, like from my experience looking online and that kind of thing, who after a while of being in the art world have kind of like transitioned into tattoo art because it's pretty lucrative. Have you ever considered, something like that?
I think there's enough pressure doing it on paper for somebody.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? And I would feel really good, like if I did a portrait on someone, it looked really nice, they felt really good, it was their grandmother or something, you feel really good, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But if you messed up on somebody and you mess up on their skin for life, I wouldn't want that pressure. I have a bunch of tattoo buddies, and I wouldn't want that pressure. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I get why people be so finicky about it, because it's on your skin for life. Mm-hmm. Right? And no, I don't think that's something I'd want to do.
You'd consider, yeah. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. I get that.
Yeah, and it's not, and I don't want to, I like doing it from home, or I like painting outside. Like I want to start doing a lot more live paintings now that things are open up a bit. Mm-hmm. Like I did a live painting at Bottom Line Sports Bar, where I did art and hockey. This is where the mask thing comes in. I was doing a painting of 3 goalie masks. So it was Felix Potvin, Mike Palmateer, and Grant Fuhrer. I was doing all their Toronto Maple Leaf masks. So I set everything up at the bar. I got my easel set up. I got my posters, my business cards, and I'm getting ready to paint. I sketched it out first. I was going to paint it there. So I got all these 3 masks set up, and I look to my left, and I see a guy walk in. And I was like, "Huh, that dude looks familiar." Right? I look at him again. He looks at me. He gives me the same look. That brain starts racking, right? How do I know this guy? Where can I relate him to? Is it wrestling? No. Is it Elvis? No. Must be hockey, right? So I related him to hockey because it was this hockey sports bar too. And then I realized it was a gentleman named Greg Harrison. Greg Harrison is a goalie mask designer who has most of his masks up in the Hall of Fame. So we've talked online before. So he comes up to me and he goes, "Danny?" I'm like, "Mr. Harrison," right? "It's a pleasure meeting you." And he goes, "What are you painting?" And I looked down at my painting and I went, "2 of your masks?" Right? And he looks at me and goes, "Oh, well, that's great." But I'm like shaking, right? And then I'm putting 2 and 2 together. The man who painted these masks originally for these hockey players is the same man who painted the masks that were on my wall as a kid that I used to emulate hours and hours and days drawing as a kid. And he's standing behind me as I'm painting one of his masks. And I'm just
Talk
in
about a full
awe,
circle moment right there.
right? And it was like an aha moment where I just turned around, I looked at him, and he goes, "Yeah, Danny, when I did this mask, when you're coming over here with this line, you know, he wanted me to do this and this." And he's telling me the history of this mask, Felix Potvin's mask, that I drew as a kid 100 times, 200 times easily. That was a poster on my wall. I drew it hundreds of times. And here I am painting it with the man who painted the original mask over my shoulder, telling me history and the story behind it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and the reason why I did that mask was for Art and Hockey, which was for sick kids. So if I didn't do that charity event for sick kids, that situation would never happen.
There you go.
So
that's so important. I mean, all the work that I've done with Barrie Wrestling, all the wrestling photography I've done, I don't get paid for what I do. I do it because I enjoy it. And
they appreciate it.
And they appreciate it, exactly. And to have that feedback and that kind of respect from it is important. And for that respect to turn into a future, a financial future, dude, that's perfect.
Yeah, man, like that. Yeah, that was a very cool moment for me. He even came to my art show too. He came to my art show. He showed up. He signed a painting for me after I finished it, and we became good friends now. And he's like, "Why don't you come to my house and I can show you some stuff?" And so him and I are going to do a painting together of Grant Fuhrer's Edmonton Oilers mask. I'm going to do the black and white, and he's going to do the blue and orange, and we're going to do it together.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to do that hopefully next month or so. So I'll keep you guys up to date on that. So
yeah.
So
excited.
Your daughter came and said hello to us. So my daughter just came and said hello.
Hello. Hello.
She's on her way up to her condo. So maybe
moving on up.
Yeah. To the east side. There you go, Dix. Yeah. All right. She makes an appearance every once in a while. All right. Well, Danny, man, this has been a lot of fun. I can't thank you enough. Before we get to the next 3 questions that we close our show off with, Aurora, have you got anything else you'd like to ask Danny?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it very early in the conversation about your experiences, singing as Elvis for many years. I don't know if many people know this, but I'm like super into like 50s rock and roll. It's like a regular in my in my playlist. I listen to it all the time. I didn't even know this. So one of my favorite things was actually one of my main requirements to going to Vegas was I needed to get some pictures with some Elvis impersonators.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Do you have any cool stories or that you might want to share, something memorable from your times this doing these shows
from the Elvis world?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of moments. There's been a lot of really cool moments. There's been some sad moments. There's been some angry moments, like anything, right? Yeah. But I remember when I was 16, I sang Friday night in the stage at Collingwood. And back then, the Collingwood Elvis Festival, so this was 2000, was massive. Like
the world's biggest.
Massive, right? Yeah. So I hopped on this stage at 16 and there were 17,000 people watching. literally on the street. You can look out and you see heads and then black and then heads, right? And it's just insane. So I'm up there, I'm all nervous, of course, right? And I sang a song called Mama Like the Roses, which was a song Elvis had on his Christmas album. The reason why I sang it is because it was my mom's favorite song, right? And I'm a huge Mama's boy, so shout out to you, Mama. And
I love it. Love
yeah,
it.
so I went up and I sang that song, and I was proud of myself. It went okay and stuff like that. And these group of bikers came through the path, and they just started walking towards me, and they were pretty intimidating dudes. Like the people there were mostly older people that liked Elvis, right? So that was the demographic. So these bikers came up to me, and this guy, he had bald head and this long goatee, and he goes, "Hey, are you the boy that sang Mama Like the Roses?" I was like, "Yes, sir, that was me." And he hugged me. And he hugged me, and he hugged me so tight, and I could feel him like shaking and quivering and stuff like that. I'm just like, and then he stopped me. He grabbed his hands on my face. So, chubby kid, right? He puts his hand on my face, and he goes, "That was my mom's favorite song, and she passed away last week." So he
Oh
goes,
my
I knew that was her saying that I should be here, because why else would I be here? And then he was just, tears were rolling down his face, and then he gave me one last hug. He looked at me, winked, did the whole, and then walked away. And I was just standing there, just in complete and utter awe. And that was a moment that I'll cherish for the rest of my life, because
You must
it
have
went
looked, a little bit like this picture that we're sharing right here. At that
a
point.
little bit. That was a little older. I didn't age for a lot of years until I had kids. Then I aged drastically.
What a moment, though. This is when I saw you perform. This is one of the shots I had of you back in the day.
Yeah, so that was at Stage West.
That's where Shelley was the stage manager. That's right. Yep.
That's where Shelley was the stage manager, always keeping us boys in line and whipping us into shape. And I love Shelley dearly, but she's intimidating, right? So because when she's telling you to do something, she's telling you to do something, right? And all the guys always felt that way too, and it was great because she'd always make things go well. Because it's, I called it toddlers in sideburns, like toddlers in tiaras, because it's the same thing. Like, you watch that show and it's the exact same thing, but instead of the moms, it's the wives, right? And Shelley didn't put up with shit from anybody. She's never been who she is, right? So she always made it go so smooth. She always treated me a little differently, though. Like, she kind of babied me a little
You were
bit
like
more,
her,
I'll be honest.
her kid brother, like her son, right?
Yeah, she babied me a little bit more than the other guys, but yeah, man. So yeah, it's always a great time. But that
awesome.
that was one moment that was really, really big that I'll remember for the rest of my life, for sure.
Yeah. That must be so amazing. Anytime you do anything with any of your kind of art, when you can, touch someone so deeply with what you've done, it really means a lot.
Yeah, there's no better feeling in the world. And it's like, and that's what I got with the music, but that's also what I get with the art, right? Like, when I get to do a custom portrait for somebody or someone who's passed away, and you get to give it to their family, and they open it up, and it's just like, it's instant tears, and you can't fake it, you can't provoke, like, you can't, there's nothing. It's just, you look at someone open it, and it's just that it feels so good.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels so good that you could do that for somebody. I did a drawing lately. I lost a friend when we were 14 here in Collingwood. We were actually on a skiing trip, and he had an accident. We lost him at 14. And all these years, I think of him constantly. And his youngest brother reached out to me and said, "Hey, Danny, the anniversary's coming up. Will you do a drawing for my mom, of my brother who passed?" Of course, I said yes, right? Of course, I said yes, I'd love to. And as soon as I signed the drawing and it was done, it just felt like I went from being sad for 20 years to just being happy, because I felt like I could give back to his mom. Like, this is a way I can never bring her son back by any means. I can always offer her my support and give her a hug or anything she needs, right? But this is like, as soon as I signed it, I just felt like a sense of like he was with me. It was a way I could give to her. And she has it in her living room on this little stand that she looks at every morning when she has her coffee, and it always makes her smile.
Aww.
Right. And like I said, that's because you don't make money. Like, you don't make money with art. You don't make a lot of money with art. You don't make a lot of money with music. But that's not what it's about. Like, it's
No,
about that.
this is
It's
exactly
about
what it's
raw
about.
emotion. Yeah.
This is why we do the pod. I'm just sitting here digesting all this, and this is exactly why personally I wanted to do this podcast, because it means something to us.
Yeah.
You know, like you're doing things that mean something, that you're giving to somebody, and that makes you feel good. This is what makes us feel good, and we have to do those things. And as a creator, to be able to use our brain and our mind and our creativity to generate this kind of positivity. I'm going to say positivity instead of money or whatever. General positivity, bringing other people up.
Yeah.
That's so important, because there are so many forces out there just bringing us down.
Yeah.
For us to be able to use what, let's say, God gave us, and be able to bring some positivity to the world, so important, Danny.
Yeah.
So important, man.
Yeah, it's good for everybody. It's good for everyone around you too.
Yeah, totally. You do a podcast as well, don't you?
I helped my brother-in-law with a podcast. He started a podcast during COVID. He was a professional hockey player. He played in the OHL and the AHL. He played overseas, and he played one game with the Buffalo Sabres. And he was a hockey enforcer, so he's a tough guy, fighter. His name's Sean the Sheriff McMorrow. So he started a podcast, and he had me on. I was a guest on his 5th episode, and I went, you know what? He's taking this seriously. He's good at it. Idle hands is the devil's playground. So I like that he's keeping busy. So let me see if I can help him. And then I went from helping him to being the producer of the show. And then I went from being the producer to the show to being his management and producer to the show. And we're at 135 episodes now.
Wow.
Yeah, we've talked to a whole bunch of yeah, thank you. Yeah, we talked to a whole bunch of different people, which is awesome. Like, not just hockey players and hockey enforcers, but I've been able to meet a lot of cool people in you know, through my art and through my music and just through the walks of life. So we've had on a lot of interesting people. Like Don Cherry came on, which is cool. He doesn't do podcasts.
That's
But
so cool.
yeah, so that was cool. My brother-in-law played with him when he owned the Mississauga Ice Dogs, so he had a lot of respect for my brother-in-law. A lot of hockey players, but a lot of personalities from the 90s. Sean's career was big in the 90s and early 2000s, so I'm friends with Rick the Temp Campanelli.
Oh, right on.
So yeah, so Rick came on. We had Hal Johnson for Body Break. He came on to talk about, you know, just my brother-in-law and my wife, her whole family, they're Trinidadian Irish. So their dad is Trinidadian, their mom's Irish. They were raised by their Irish mother in an Irish household. But of course, they're people of color. So that's how society looks at them. So he was a man of color in the 90s and 2000s playing hockey, which wasn't too common. Right? It's still not too common, but it definitely wasn't too common back then. Right? So we try to use our podcast for that, to try to just bring awareness to the history of hockey, the history of Black players in hockey, where it came from. And we're really big advocates for mental health awareness on our show. Like, because a lot of these guys are tough guys. Like, I can't get help. I can't reach out to anybody. I can't cry. I can't complain. Right? I got to be tough. I always have to be tough. That's who I am. And it kills them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They turn to alcohol. Yeah, they turn to alcohol. They turn to pills. And then when they're done playing hockey, they don't know anything else. They played hockey since they were 5 years old. They never had a job. Right? They don't know anything else. So this was a great outlet for my brother-in-law, and we've met so many cool people through it, and we've done a lot of charity work together, going to like golf tournaments and stuff like that with it. And yeah, it's built our relationship a lot stronger too. And when he's busy, my mother-in-law is, you know, less worried, and my mother-in-law is an angel walking this earth, so she's less worried. Then we're all happy. So yeah, it's called the Sheriff Podcast. Check it out on any platform.
Definitely do that.
Yeah.
Definitely do that. I'm going to go check that out, actually.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to subscribe to that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Danny, man, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time and being with us tonight.
Thank you, guys.
I know you've got your family waiting on you, so we're not going to keep you for too long. I've got a few more questions for you, though.
Please.
We ask 3 questions at the end of every episode to our guest. The first question is something that you know about, our challenge that we want to issue our viewers or listeners. I still don't know if people are actually doing these challenges, but I like them because it gives me ideas, and I've done a few of them myself. I've taken a lot of them to heart. Do you remember the challenge that you wanted to issue?
Yeah, it was just doing a portrait for someone or doing something creative for someone and just giving it to them. Don't say anything. Like when COVID first started, I had a couple friends that were nurses. So I did a bunch of portraits and I just sent it to them. Just sent it to them. Like it was a portrait with them with all their stuff on. Like I did one for my friend Claire Sutherland and it's with her mask on and everything. And I just sent it to her. And all the letter said was, "Thank you, Danny." That's it. That's all it said in it. No explanation on why I did it or why I did it for them. It's nice to do something creative for someone and just to do it. Just randomly do it. Right? So that's my challenge. Do something creative for someone. If it's like going and taking their portrait with your camera or doing a drawing for them or just doing something that doesn't cost you any money but's creative and you can use your talent to do it.
I like that you
think that would be
clarified
funny.
and took it away from do a portrait of somebody and send it to them and made it do something creative. Because if I were to draw a portrait and send it to, let's say, my wife, she wouldn't be too happy with me. Not with my portrait skills. So something creative I can do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if I tried to grab a camera and do a headshot, it'd be the same thing, buddy. So I
Awesome.
can't do that.
All right. Well, that's a great one. Thank you for that. And now the last two questions. The first one is tools of the trade. I think I might know what the answer would be, but it doesn't have to be a physical thing. It could be a mental thing. It could be something that gets you through the day. As you start to work, is there a saying that goes through your head? Is there something that you rely on every single time that you draw?
Yeah, those two little girls sitting there in the living room. Yeah. Every time I do something, everything I do in my life, I do for them. Right. So I have a picture of them above my desk. And I lost a buddy of mine a little bit ago, a gentleman named Johnny Gale, which Brian. He was one of the voices for Super Kicked Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So we tragically lost him not that long ago. And I have a poster of him hanging up on my wall beside a picture of his mom holding the drawing I did of him. So that every time I do that, I look at him and I say, well, I said, let's fucking do this, buddy. That's what gets me going. That's my tools. I got pins that I wear that have Johnny on it, t-shirts that have Johnny on it. He was an inspiration to a lot of people whose life got cut really short for horrible reasons. So I want to try to, like, after we lost him, it pushed me even more to try to be better because I knew him. So that's my tools of the trade are my girls and telling Johnny Gale, let's fucking do this.
And that's what really spurred your art in wrestling, isn't it? The Johnny Gale.
Yeah, the Johnny was big.
Sorry,
Johnny came. Yeah.
She's gonna destroy things, which is really bad because I've got like a light blocker here. So there.
She rules the roost anyways.
There you go, Dixie. Have some wind. There you go. Sorry, Danny.
Don't be.
Sorry, that was incredibly rude.
I had to open up a freezy, so don't be. But yeah, Johnny was a big fan of my art. Johnny had a couple pieces of my art in his house, and he came to my first wrestling art show, and he's a big inspiration. And then when he passed away right after that art show, the second one was in his memory, and it was nice. His mom came to it, and his brother, and his father, and a bunch of his friends, and his mom was smiling and laughing, and yeah, she didn't smile and laugh for a long time.
No kidding.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that was
So
really
powerful.
cool. Yeah,
it's so powerful what you can do with creativity in your mind.
Yeah, and but you just do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing. Like, the last art show I did, there was a lot going on in my life with COVID and everything, and I wasn't mentally prepared as I should have been for it. We'll put it that way. So it was a lot harder. But you do it, right? And then after I did it, it felt so good. Right, like we raised over $2,000 for Sick Kids Hospital just with my artwork.
Good,
right? And another thing that pushed me was I had an art teacher that told me I wouldn't amount to anything as an artist if I just drew what I loved. So
what?
That's why I draw what I love. He's like, Dan, you can't just always draw Elvis and wrestlers all the time. And I went, why not? Why not? Right? You wanted to do an abstract painting. That's what we're learning today. Here's an abstract painting of Elvis. You wanted to draw something to do with masks. Well, hello, wrestling. Right? And then I remember him telling me that, and it always stuck with me. And then, so that's why I draw what I love, and another reason why I do it for charity. because I'm drawing what I'm loving now, and I'm drawing what I love, and I've raised almost $10,000 for children's hospitals. So
just want to do a little dance and go, look what I can do.
exactly.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, on to the third question, the final question of the night, and possibly the most important question. What's your jam? What's that song that just gets you amped and you can't skip past? It's your 5-star rated song at all times. That one song that just every time you hear it makes you happy.
It changes quite a bit, right? But you know what pumps me up is Bob with a Bob by Kid Rock.
That will do it.
Yeah, that pumps me up pretty good. You know what I've really been into lately? I used to tease my sisters because they loved 80s music because they're older than me. And I never liked 80s music, right? I was stuck on Elvis my whole life, right? Like, I've just been stuck on Elvis. But Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi is so freaking good, right?
That's like an anthem song.
That or anything by Journey. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, what's your favorite Elvis jam?
Ooh, that's
Elvis has such different genres, right?
Yeah.
Like when it comes to like the 70s stuff, I really like Just Pretend. Or in 69, a song called Any Day Now, I really like. Anything raw from the 50s was just so good, right? Like 54 and like 55 when he's doing like Louisiana Hayride and singing like Maybelline, Baby Let's Play House. It's just so raw, right? And that's the one thing about Elvis that I just loved. But the more I get older, you know, when you get older, you change, right? Like I'm more related to the older love ballads when I started getting older than listening to like the hardcore Elvis stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, when people think of Elvis, they think of Jailhouse Rock, and they think of, you know, a lot of different upbeat kind of Elvis swinging his hips kind of music.
Yeah.
I know, you know, my mother-in-law, Pauline.
Of course I do.
She is a huge Elvis fan. She still watches Elvis performances when they play live. What's his name? Doug from England. I think she watches him. Anyway, doesn't matter. The song that she told me is her favorite, which blew my mind, was the song "Don't."
Oh.
And I didn't realize that even was a song, and I started listening to it, and it's totally in my daily playlist now. It's a great tune.
Yeah, well, Elvis had like over 400 some odd songs, right? So like, and not a lot of them were hit. Well, none of them were his. Let's be honest. But like,
I'll take that one.
Yeah. But he and it's songs that relates to certain situations in your life too, right?
Yeah.
Like I was blessed for both of my grandmothers to sing "Peace in the Valley" at their ceremonies when they passed away. So like that song, even though I can't listen to it, because I can't listen to it, if you know what I mean. Still means a lot to me, right? Completely. So, yeah. But yeah, I really like "Promised Land" is such a night. But we could go on for days with how many Elvis songs I like.
Yeah.
Awesome. Danny, thank you so much, man. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Aurora, anything else you'd like to ask Danny before we say goodnight?
No. I just want to thank you for coming on. It's been a really great conversation with, art and how influential and how touching art can be in so many different ways. So I really appreciate you being on and opening up about those things for sure too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I hope you have some aloe vera.
Yeah, I definitely do.
Danny, how can people follow you and see all the work that you've done?
Just Danny Granger Art. It's on everything: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. That's mostly it. I just do the social media stuff quite a bit. I don't do. I have a Twitch account, but there's no point. I don't play video games. I got it because I was actually a special guest on Trinity from the Trailer Park Boys. Oh. So Gianna Canuck is a friend of mine, and she has a Twitch channel, and she had the rock pile on there. So they asked me to come on and be a special guest. Only reason why I have a Twitch account. But Instagram, Facebook, it's all Danny Granger Art.
Awesome. Thank you once last time, Aurora. Thank you for being here this week. And thank you, everybody who's watched this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, share this with some friends, and get out there and enjoy life, guys. Use your creativity and keep having fun. Take care, everyone. We'll see y'all next week. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh.